What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with Tesla Spine, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the economic calendar going into tomorrow, what's happening with some more big news involving the markets, and what you should be watching for as time progresses. Before we get into most information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull and deposit $500 into the account, you're guaranteed 20 free stocks. If you deposit $25,000 or more, you're guaranteed 75 of them, and the offer ends very soon in just a couple of weeks. Anyways, for the market, looking at Tesla, this thing is showing some signs of a bounce, and it could even uptrend a little bit longer from here. But the question is, what's going to happen moving forward? In my personal opinion, the market is showing some life for the short term. We could even push a little higher, but for the more medium term, I still see the risk of downside based off what we're seeing on the trends. Now, I'm going to break down exactly why that is in just a couple of minutes, but I first want to talk about some data for the markets and also what the news is saying about Tesla. So what's happening with some data? Please remember that tomorrow is going to be Monday, April 8th, 2024. At 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, that's in New York time, we have the Consumer Inflationary Expectations Report coming out. This could cause some volatility as the forecast is at 2.9%, and this is just a couple of days before CPI comes out. Then at 11:30 a.m., we have the 3-month and 6-month bill auctions coming out. Look for even more volatility with that happening. And then we end the day with Kashkari giving a speech. Now, this is significant because for Tuesday, there's less significant data as well as we have the Business Optimism Index and some bill auctions. But all of this insignificant data for Monday and Tuesday is just setting us up for something huge. And that is going to be on Wednesday. On Wednesday of this week, right here, we have CPI coming out. CPI is going to be huge before the market opens. This could cause some crazy volatility, could cause a massive move, and it can actually change the direction in which SPY is going. So for bullish, heading into CPI, this could cause a rug pull. If we're bearish heading into CPI in like another hypothetical situation, CPI could also launch the market higher. So you want to be open-minded with that, having seen this in the past. So get ready for CPI later on for the week. But for now, for Monday, the data is going to start off kind of minor, so just be prepared and keep this all in the back of your mind. As far as other pieces of data go, I just want to talk about earnings. We just have Gorilla coming out on Monday, very, very minor. Everything else is very minor for the week. Tuesday, we have WD-40. Everything is kind of small. And then Friday is when things become very, very serious. We have JP Morgan Chase. We have Wells Fargo. We have BlackRock. We have Citi and Progressive. BlackRock is going to be a big one. So is JP Morgan Chase. This could cause a big move in the markets, so get ready for these big earnings. We have quite an interesting week from Wednesday through Friday. We have lots of data coming out, not to mention earnings, and it's going to be very, very impactful. Now, as far as the market goes, I want to talk about these indicators before I break down Tesla news. So right now, the market is still a bit more greedy as we're seeing some buyers stepping in again, defending their positions. Right now, other indicators are at greed. They're still maintaining this greed as the market's getting bought back up. And also, the puts and call positioning is still going up as we're seeing more puts being bought. But with puts being bought again, this could be incentivize Wall Street try to drag things down to make their profits. And simultaneously, when it comes to market volatility, we're still at extreme fear. The VIX has broken past the 50 daily moving average. We'll have to see if this thing continues to push or not. If this thing gets a big rejection, this could shift a little bit. If it keeps breaking out or respects an uptrend, this could be bullish. More bearish for the markets as well. So right now, as the VIX is trying to hold above its 50 daily moving average, let's see what the trend is on the VIX. I'll talk more about this later, and that's going to determine which way we end up going. Now, for other pieces of news when it comes to Tesla, I went over all this on Friday. Basically, Tesla stock made some very, very interesting moves as Reuters had this report that came out that said that Tesla has scrapped their whole cheap EV plans. Their plans to get a $25,000 EV for the Model 2, and they're going to be focusing more on the robotaxi. Instead, Elon Musk is saying that's not true, and they're still planning on getting that more affordable EV to be more competitive in China, right? That's very, very important. So that caused some volatility, and what caused Tesla to make a big move in the after hours was this news right here. Elon Musk is saying that Tesla is going to reveal its robotaxi on August 8th. That is very, very important. This is what Tesla has been talking about for years. And finally, we're going to get some news about this. Now, I don't expect them to actually release the product immediately, of course, but I'm going to be looking to see what details are announced, what Elon Musk and Tesla have to say. And this is going to be very important. There's a lot of hype about this, so this could actually launch Tesla a little higher as we're seeing buyers stepping in. So I wouldn't be surprised if Tesla pushes a bit more for a temporary period of time before we see a big shift in the share price later on. As far as Tesla goes, Morgan Stanley gave Tesla an overweight rating, saying it's going to outperform the market. Baird did the same thing, and so did Deutsche Bank. And we're going to be watching to see what this causes. Not to mention the fact that the price-price ratio is kind of low right here, might bounce a little bit if Tesla outperforms the market temporarily. But overall, Tesla is still kind of weak compared to the market when it comes to the bigger trend. It still is very, very different. If you look at like Tesla versus SPY or Tesla versus the QQQ, the indices are still near all-time highs, but Tesla, of all things, is still very low compared to its. That's why this chart kind of looks like this. Mondays do tend to be green about 53% of the time, so there's a good chance that Tesla could hold up. And we also tend to see more volatility at 10 a.m., 11 o'clock a.m., and also around 2 p.m., so watch for that as well. April tends to be a good month for Tesla, so we'll see how this goes for them. But don't forget that cyclicals are suggesting the market may shift soon. The market may downtrend a bit later on, and that could affect Tesla too. Now, let me add that volume was 143 million. Tesla was selling off hard. Then we saw a lot of volume in the opposite direction during the after hours after the big news that Elon Musk announced. So I think that there's going to be some hype left, and this could help Tesla to some extent. So what do I think is going to happen? Honestly, guys, let me just be very clear with you. Tesla's looking pretty good right now. It's trying to rebound a bit. I'm seeing the potential for this to try to bounce, and it could push even higher. But one thing that's very common is that very close to about this 177 to about one very, very low 180 area, Tesla does tend to get these rejections. So it is possible for Tesla to push a bit more before it reaches that resistance. So we're going to be looking at resistance around 172. And above that, we could get closer to like 175 or so. And then for support, make sure you watch 170.5. If we lose this on Tesla, we could be sinking all the way back down to 168. What do I think Tesla's going to do, in my personal opinion? Well, after this big push that happened in the after hours, thanks to Elon Musk making the big announcement about the robotaxi, I think that there's a very good chance we're going to gap up on Monday and try to push a little bit higher with another liquidity grab. I think the market's going to push a little bit more, but then we could end up churning later on as we're getting some signals that suggest that. So to clarify, if you look at Tesla on without any of these indicators, Tesla's actually downtrending a little bit. If you guys look at this, we're downtrending, technically speaking. So I think there's a very good chance that Tesla could pop again, try to grab liquidity, pop right here, fill this imbalance all the way up around 175. Then we might start trading sideways up here, chop around a bit. And then later on, I don't know if it's because of CPI or even before CPI, Tesla might start dropping back down to start filling this gap. And I think there's a very good chance of that happening. So a pop and drop like move is what I'm kind of anticipating. I'm going to be watching to see how Tesla reacts to these key resistance levels. Now, as far as levels go, I want to call out the possibility of a temporary uptrend on the short-term time frame, all the way back up to about 175 or so, filling this imbalance. Then we might see some sideways price action, followed by a move to the downside later on, back down to about 168, if not 165. So a pop, choppy price action in this liquidity zone, then a move back down is very, very probable for Tesla. I find that to be very, very likely. As far as SPY goes, I'm seeing something very similar developing on the chart. We're trying to rebound right over here, and a nice double bottom kind of formed, and we could see an attempt to push higher again towards 520. If we break this, look at the imbalance at 522. That is going to be key for SPY. However, even if SPY does push a little bit higher, let me show you something. Every time that this thing hits this resistance at 524 to 526, or as we get closer to 524, we do have a tendency of getting rejected, right? We hit 524, rejected, went a little bit higher to 526, rejected, 524, rejected. We'd love to reject near 524 or below that, so I find that to be very probable again. So I think SPY could push a little bit higher. They might push it towards 522 if we break past 520. If not, as just under 524, somewhere in this very, very low 520 area could go. And then once it's up at these high levels, it might chop around a bit. And maybe right before CPI, or if not after CPI, there's a very good chance we're going to be making a rejection off this resistance. I find that to be very, very probable as long as we end up holding below 524. If we break 524 and we end up closing above that, I'm going to turn back to bullish and think we can push higher. But I don't find that to be the most likely possibility. I think we'll most likely pop near 524, if not a little bit below it, chop around a bit, and then eventually come back down. I find that to be very probable, and that is my prediction, in my opinion. For the QQQ, I see something very, very similar. Make sure you watch supports right over here around this 440 area. If we lose 440.2, we're coming down to 438, then 436. We have resistance at 442 as well at the 200 EMA. If we break this, watch 444. We also have this imbalance to fill at 445 and then 447. I believe that the QQQ could attempt to push a little higher thanks to Nvda, retest 442 to 444 around this range. And I think that around here, it's going to start chopping a bit and then start falling, because what I'm seeing is there's more weakness on the QQQ chart than that of SPY. It's been downtrending for the last couple of weeks already, and we're starting to see some contraction in the chart. Now, it's not crashing or anything like that. It's just been on a slight downtrend. And I find that's to be very likely that it continues on this trend. So look for an attempt to go a little higher. It might push a little bit higher towards 442 to 444, chop around a bit, then eventually make its way back down lower towards 436. I find that that's to be very, very probable. On top of all of this, when it comes to Nvidia may do the same thing. Nvidia could attempt to go a little bit higher, just a little bit more, but just watch these levels. So if we lose 878 around the 20 EMA, we could start sinking to 872, if not below that. If we break past 883, I find this thing like having the potential to go all the way up to this imbalance at 892. That's where our range is right now on our 20 and 50 EMA. I personally think that Nvidia might actually push a little higher, try to get back to this resistance, trade a little sideways up here, and then eventually start falling back down. I think that's most likely going to happen. So we'll have to watch and see if that ends up being the case. For Apple, Apple has a pop and drop like structure that keeps on perpetuating. So I think that Apple could retest 169.7, if not 170, then come back down to 169, if not the 168.2 area. So I do see some downside potential in Apple. We have a head and shoulders like structure. I think that it may pop a bit and then eventually come back down lower to 168. So it's looking a little bit weaker to me compared to the markets. With that being said, guys, I went over the majority of the tickers out there that I typically go over that are like the most significant ones. So I just want to say that Tesla may pop and drop. It could push a little bit more, but be careful once we get to these high levels. Tesla likes to reject up there, and the whole market is going to affect Tesla, because I do believe the market may pull back soon. Okay, that's my personal opinion. Not now. I think the market could push up first, but then later on, maybe over the next week or so, there could be a catalyst coming, and I find that very probable on the charts. That's what the charts are kind of showing. All right, so that's it for the main five. Now I'm going to talk about a couple more and be kind of quicker with this. So please bear with me. Let me pull up the 4-hour time frame on Palantir. Palantir is trying to kind of push a little bit. Going to be looking for a test of about 22.94. If we do break through this, and the reason I'm calling that level out is because we came down quite a bit in the after hours, so we're still below that. So it's going to retest 22.9. If we lose that, if we reject off that, we're going to be sinking back down to about 22 flat, if not 21.88. If we break through this, we could pop a bit. My guts tells me it's going to retest this zone and then eventually start dropping. Looks a little bit weaker on that end. In terms of Supermicro, we're looking a little bit more bearish. Going to be looking to see a retest of about 959, then 980. If we break 959, we could pop a little bit more, back up to 980. But we have to break past 1,000 to turn a little bit more bullish, and we haven't been able to do so. So I think it might pop a little bit and eventually start sinking back down lower towards 907. I find that to be very probable. The chart is still looking weaker. It's been making lower highs and lower lows, looking a bit more bearish. For Rivian's looking a little bit weaker as well. We have this head and shoulders like structure, and we're just barely at this 10 support. Could pop a bit, retest 10.17, eventually start sinking lower towards lower levels like 10. I think that's at 10, this thing is going to get a little reaction from the buyers. They might try to push it back up higher towards like 9.5. I'm sorry, 10.5 again. And then we might see this thing end up falling afterwards. So I think that we could retest 10, pop a little bit to 10.3 to 10.5, then eventually make our way back down lower, all the way down here to 9.8 or so. And I say that because the current trend is very, very weak. That's a historical level. Now, SoFi has potential off this inverse head and shoulders like structure that is developing, but there's no sign of a breakout. If we break 7.8, we turn bullish. If we lose 7, we turn bearish for 6.8. Overall, there's an inverse head and shoulders, but for the last couple of weeks, we haven't officially broken out. We've been stuck between 7.2 and 7.5. So I think that SoFi might actually pop a little bit towards 7.5 again and continue to trade sideways for now. But for us to get a big move, we have to watch and see what the reaction is. For AMD, we're looking a little bit weaker. I'm going to be looking for a test of 170.68. If we do break this, watch for 175 to be retested, then a move back down. I think it might actually push for 175, then reject and come back down lower. But just to be safe, watch the trend. But I do find that's to be more probable. For ARM, it might retest 125.32. We'll see if it kind of gets a little temporary pop and drop off that, because it's been hovering below the 20 EMA. I think it might push a little bit higher, get just under 127, then reject and come back down and start sinking closer to 120 again. For Coinbase is on a bit of a downtrend. It's been downtrending for quite some time. I could see it actually retest like around 250, maybe a little bit lower, then make its way back down lower later on. So look for a retest of 250, then a rejection and a move to the downside. I still find that to be very, very likely. Amazon is still looking bullish. This thing is continuing to push and break out. Going to be looking for a retest of 184, then a bounce to 186. Looks bullish overall. I think the same thing is going to happen to Meta, a retest of about 523.5, then a push higher towards 530. Still looks bullish overall. Microsoft is just trading sideways. Look for a retest of about 428. Then it could come back down towards about 425 and just continue to trade sideways. So it's not really doing much there. Google's looking a little bit more bearish. It had this liquidity grab right here. It's been sinking since. So I see a move back down to 151.73 coming. Google looks a bit more bearish to me. The VIX, it could see a temporary drop to about 15.2-ish, but it could bounce again off this resistance. So this is resistance becoming support. If the VIX drops a little bit more, it could be because the market's going to bounce a little bit more, push a little bit higher, but then the VIX is still respecting an uptrend and the VIX can still break out more. So the VIX is kind of showing me that it might drop for the short term, meaning the stock market may push for the short term. Tesla, SPY, these stocks could push a little bit higher, but the VIX might end up establishing a higher low, retest the 20 EMA, which aligns like right here, then break out later on and go even higher, which means the stock market could get a rug pull later on as well. The stock market may be bullish short term, push a little bit more, but for the medium term, there's a very good chance we're going to be bearish and there's going to be a rug pull coming. Okay? That's what I'm seeing on the charts, and I think the VIX kind of suggests that. The dollar, I'm not sure about the dollar yet. We have to wait and see what happens with crude oil and also inflationary data. The 50 EMA is being tested at 104.3, but it's kind of rejecting right now. So maybe it comes down a little bit more as the market pushes, retests 103.9, and then bounces again. Maybe it's going to form a double bottom and start breaking out. Who knows, guys? But for now, the dollar looks like it might come down a little bit as the market pushes higher, but then things could shift from here. All right. So my view of the market is simple. We could push a little bit for a day or two. We could try to make an attempt higher, but I do believe there's going to be a big move, a big rug pull coming very soon in the markets. I still hold that view based off cyclicals, based off the charts, and based off other factors. That's what I find to be very likely. All right, guys. So thank you for listening. Hope you guys have an absolutely incredible rest of the day. Enjoy your Sunday. If you guys are going to be watching some nice events or doing anything like that, enjoy, do what you have to do, and I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow morning during my pre-market update video. Thank you for listening. Tesla to the moon because the long term is very bright, and peace out.